Durant. I'm the Director of Restoration for Back to Natives Restoration. We are a 501c3 public charity that does habitat restoration and environmental education. So that might beg the question of why it is that we're here at a landscape design in Huntington Beach. And the main reason is that we use landscape design using only native plants, as locally native as possible, to raise funds and awareness about our habitat restoration projects. This is at Project 319, Living Green on Project 319 at Huntington Beach by, as you can see, Living Green Homes, Construction and Development. And they asked us to provide them with an all-native plant garden and landscape design that would help them to achieve the greenest rating possible for Build a Green and also LEED. So with native plants, we greatly reduce the use of water and completely eliminate the use of chemicals in the landscape. If you use chemicals, of course, you lose your beneficial insects. If you can just wait the week, maybe 2 weeks, of allowing the beneficial insects to find the bad insects that you might have on your garden, then you'll soon, very quickly find a much more pleasant area to be. Less harmful to you, that doesn't have household chemicals being used to rid yourself of pests like weeds or other bad insects. And you have much more activity in the garden from butterflies, birds, bees, and other things that should be in there with your native plants. So it reduces use of water of up to 90%. There was a study that was done recently with Idaho State University that showed that a 7,000 square foot area would use, if it was planted with natural, with grasses, not naturally, but with grasses as for a sod type lawn, would use more than 250,000 gallons of water a year. That same area, 7,000 square foot, planted with native plants, would use less than 40,000 gallons of water in a year. That's a huge amount of savings. It's something that we have to keep in mind in this landscaping in Orange County, since we are already using our emergency rations of water here. Even though we've had a really great rain year this year in 2010, unfortunately we are still in a drought condition. We would have to have several years of this type of rain, along with adequate impoundment of that water to allow recharging of our aquifers. At the rate we are, with 3 million people in Orange County and growing, we do not have enough water to sustain our own population, let alone any future development here. And this type of building right here shows that how we can be more sustainable. Building in an area that has already been built up once before, instead of going to a new area and building an open space, it's building in town, redeveloping a location to recapture an area to make it more aesthetically pleasing, to make it more sustainable, and thereby having the same type of luxuries you would want by living in town, but using much less energy, much less water, and providing habitat for birds and butterflies right here in their front yard. So this area itself it already increases the biodiversity rate of this location in Huntington Beach. So the design of this plant was to make as much use of the front area as possible. As you can see, the front yard is kind of small. It's this area of Huntington Beach that we're right here near Main Street. So you have a smaller area in front in order to enjoy. So we wanted to have the best, if you will, the best bang for your buck. To have plants that are usable. So you have things like, for instance, if you're looking down into the lower coverage area, you have ground covers such as beach strawberry. Beach strawberry is a wonderful ground cover that has white flowers, but it also provides a fruit. So strawberries, which are edible. So we could use those to eat in our home, but also the sedges that are just starting to really start to fill in here are a small bunch grass that will fill in the area and can take some seasonal mowing if that was your choice, but it also helps to soften the area and is very high in protein. Then you have the bladder pod here with the yellow flowers, which is in the caper family, and so you could use this in place of capers if you were so inclined to. Realize that the expensive capers, of course, are the unopened flower buds, and the cheaper capers is once it has the little pods. The reason why it's called bladder pod, it has little pea pods on here, would be the fresh ripe green pods, and both those would be very tart. And then you have chaparral mallow, which is a fabulous host plant for several different species of butterflies, including the painted lady and American lady. Wonderful flowers throughout, and it is a mallow. So if you were really hard up for marshmallows, you could boil the roots of this plant in order to make marshmallows out of it. There's a different mallow for every plant community. So in the back there you have manzanita. It's big berry manzanita. You can make a wonderful cider from the berries. And then behind that is black sage, which is a wonderful shrub that was fantastic in Italian food. So if you look at the way this goes out, it's in an arc shape to allow for greater use of the front area, but it's also plants that provide habitat for animals, but also possibly could provide refreshments and tempting appetizers for the people who live here. So, and then also in front you have white sage, which is wonderful for the aromatic qualities of the leaves, including as incense, or I've been told it's good to cook with turkey. I haven't used it myself that way. But then in front we have narrowleaf milkweed to provide greater habitat for monarch butterflies or possibly queen butterflies. We're all concerned about the monarch population level out here. So this is an herbaceous perennial plant. As you can see, it's planted amongst ground cover so that when it does die back to the ground in late fall, early winter, you won't miss it as much because you have another green type plant that's covering the area. And then we have buckwheat, which has 7 different species of butterflies that host on this. In other words, a host plant is something where butterflies lay their eggs on. So the larvae will eat this. Of course, what's interesting is the larvae that host on this you probably will never see until after the butterfly starts flying around. So behind that is another type of salvia, and then to the behind that is ceanothus, which is a wild lilac. And then in front here is a pea family plant. This is deerweed, Lotus scoparius, which helps to fix free nitrogen back into the soils. And then there's little bunches of mints behind that, monodella or Mustang mints, that are wonderful in teas. And then if you look down lower here, right in the lower step of the terrace, we have a very drought-tolerant area because you're getting excessive heat from both rocks, both from the wall here and the lower wall here. So we wanted to have it very drought-tolerant, but at the same time very flowery. As you can see, we have miniature irises. These are Sisyrinchium bellum, which are called blue-eyed grass. They're very drought-tolerant. They can be herbaceous, in other words, die back to the ground in late fall, but under the right conditions and with little supplemental watering, you can keep them green all year long and very showy flower in the spring, and then have sporadic flowers throughout the year. A little bit lower is our native succulents to Orange County. This is Hass's Dudleya. You have a little tetract of them right there, the 5 spot. And then chalkleaf Dudleya over here that has coated with a light white dust, hence the name chalk Dudleya, if you can see. So these are very drought-tolerant plants, and they're wonderful. Now, unfortunately, with the succulents, they're not like what normal succulents people are used to. People might be tempted to come over and break off a leaf, think they're going to be growing this from the leaf. And unfortunately, what you're going to have then is a brown leaf. These do need to reproduce by seed, but they do have a prevalent amount of seed when they flower. And as you can see on these ones here, we already have 5 flower stalks right on this little Dudleya in the front. So hopefully we'll have a great number of flowers off of these this year. The flower stalks can be quite high. Ooh, I don't know if you can focus on this, but this is a native bee. It's quite awesome to see a native bee so fast.